anything other than, from what I've heard, a FBI agent. I mean, I've heard that she's connected to the FBI. I haven't heard anything else about her as to religion. Although she did wear a Catholic saint's bracelet at most of the visits after the judge got an order in saying I couldn't photograph or videotape anything. So I said out loud with her present, he's acting like he's hypnotized. And it was obvious, and she, after that point when I saw that, and I thought, hypnotism is not, that's, to me that was an indicator of something that was more governmental. And in addition to that, in those visits, it was very clear that my son was being coached to act a certain way or do certain things outside of the visits, and then they were bringing us together, my son and I together, to basically take notes on how my child and I interacted with one another after having been separated and, you know, trained to do different things, or you know, they were watching for accuracy in someone's predictions as to how we would relate to each other. At the same time that they were making documentation for the CIA or military or whoever they're doing this programming for, they were using these visitation monitors to also clearly write me up as sounding crazy. Like, they, instead of writing, Ms. Garrett asked her son to hand her the juice box, and he said, and once he did, she gave him a piece of chocolate. Instead of relaying, for example, just something simple like that, the visitation notes would read, Ms. Garrett said she wanted to drink out of her son's juice box, and to give her the juice box. Ms. Garrett then ate chocolate in front of her child and said, chocolate is made out of little pieces of plants in the dirt, and people like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. I mean, literally they would write things that made me sound selfish, crazy, incapable, and transform basic everyday experiences or things that we did into my sounding like a total, like somebody you would not want your child around, or any child around. So these visitation notes, even though sometimes instead of even just saying, even though it might have been that I said, please give me the chocolate box, or please give me the juice box, they would write it up as Ms. Garrett wanted to drink out of her child's juice box. So that's a very slight shift, but it can alter the perception of what kind of a person I am. You know, that am I drinking all of the juice out of my own child's box? I mean, am I a selfish mother? So that kind of thing, it wasn't just a few times. It wasn't like, oh, well, they just misunderstood things here and there. It was constant. It was throughout all of the visitation notes. I wasn't given any access to any of the visitation notes, not even by my lawyers. I asked and requested these notes from my lawyers so that I could make corrections. And that wasn't done. In addition to this, I was being tortured by military technology, which I will go into and explain so that that doesn't sound so crazy. But I guess I'm first talking about what they did to my son in visits, and what they were doing outside of visits is anyone's guess. But they were using toys that were in those staterooms outside of those visits with me. So why did he have access to some of those toys? And why was he being exposed to some of those toys outside of the visits with me? That's the, there's a visitation, specifically marked visitation room, where the child and the mother meet. And actually how it even happened that my son and I were forced to have these visitations instead of being together is I tried to take my child out of the country for political asylum. There was no pending investigation. I had no crime that I was running from. There's nothing for me to be running from except for exploitation and torture in this country. And I applied and requested political asylum in Canada. And in retaliation, it was basically set up. People in Canada there were working with people from the United States. I can go into that as well at a different time. But in retaliation, they took my son from me, and then they have made it impossible for me to get my son back. They took my child, they began working on him to program him and basically to torture him for the United States government. And I don't have my son. It's been 6 years. 5 of those years, I've been without my child. And this is after I spent almost my entire life working for other federal agents' kids. I mean, working for their kids. I worked mainly as a nanny. Most of the people that I was working for were connected to the federal government, as I've later discovered. So it's really crazy that all these people know what kind of a mother and caregiver I am, and that they would do this to me and to my son. The torture and the trauma that my son has been through is never going to be compensated for adequately, ever. There is nothing that they can do to completely remedy what they have done. And because this is getting a little bit long, I think I'll leave it at that. And there are a lot of gaps I'll try to fill in at a different time. But I guess this is what I ended up talking about for now. I'm actually a very quick speaker. I usually talk so fast. I've actually been accused of being manic depressive, or just being manic, period, because I naturally tend to talk very fast, to where sometimes people don't keep up with what I'm saying, or maybe I sound excitable, but I typically think fast and talk fast. I haven't been doing that with these, I've noticed, with video taping, because I think it's because I'm very nervous. I feel very strange talking to myself out loud. This is how it feels. And trying to remember to focus on this, camera. And I also tend to I've noticed, I didn't realize I do this, but sometimes when I'm thinking, I might look back and forth. And I had someone tell me one time that I do something called, I can't remember what he called it, but scanning or something, I don't remember what it is, where you look back and forth, right and left sometimes, and you're accessing both sides of your brain while you're thinking. He said it's a rare trait. But the only reason I bring that up is if I do that, or I tend to look down or away, I'm really just trying to collect my thoughts while feeling nervous. So I hope it's not misconstrued as, some sort of weird tic or side effect or of something, or mental illness, because when I think I'm a little more relaxed, it doesn't happen as much. So I think that's probably natural for all of us. We probably all have different things that come up, when we're in an unfamiliar situation. So that will be it for today. And I really need to find somebody who will investigate child abuse. And this is child abuse by Child Protective Services. and government workers. So it's been extremely hard. The social worker that was responsible, that actually was in charge at the time, Michelle Erickson, the same person, then filed a anti-harassment order against me to make it sound as though I had been harassing her, and she did this after she admitted in court, because I put her on the stand to cross-examine her in a hearing, and I asked her, I said directly, have you ever witnessed me or ever felt that I've harassed anyone? And she said no. 2 days later, she filed for an anti-harassment order against me, and I had not been in contact with her since the time that she stated in court. The answer was no. The judge in charge was Judge Alicia Nakata. She refused to give me the time to collect the evidence that was on that tape or transcript that would clear me and show that she perjured herself when she made a request for an anti-harassment order. And why the judge would do that is really strange. Most judges, any judge, would know that, and any lawyer knows, that if you have a court case and one person is alleging something against another person, typically you have at least 30 days to collect evidence to support yourself. If you make that request, usually you will be granted at least 30 days on a first-time request for collecting evidence to prove your innocence. And that is just a common knowledge facet of law here in the United States. Any lawyer you talk to, any law student, any judge knows this. I was refused that right. And then I was tortured for a year to prevent me from going back to that case and clearing it up. So there has been so much documentation that has been made against me. It's incredible. I've said a lot of this on my blog already, but maybe it's sometimes hard to sift through everything or to get a feel for how I would be speaking about it in person. So I'll probably repeat some of that same stuff in these videos, and I hope that you will believe me. And probably maybe tomorrow, I will talk about why I think it's governmental and some of the first things that have been done to me before I even had my son. So it will give a little more of a framework as to what sort of things were set up in order to allow this country to facilitate torture against me and my child, and why they might be interested in doing this. So thanks very much for listening and for watching, and I hope that you are having a good day or evening wherever you may be. Thank you.